First of all, introducing our challenger.
Out of the blue corner.
He's going to step in and he does. It's all over.
Let's bring on the boom.
This is Eternal MMA.
What's the good word, mixed martial arts fans? Welcome back to another edition of the Eternal Insiders Podcast. My name's Luke and I'm your host, and once again, very excited to be here. Excited probably because I'm joined by another, for the second week in a row, former Eternal Flyweight champion. He's a man that's making his debut at UFC 284 in 2 weeks, of course. By now, you know who I'm talking about. It's a Turkish delight himself, Mr. Shannon Ross. Shannon, how are we doing today, brother?
Yeah, doing really good. Thanks, Luke. 2 weeks away from the big one and getting super excited, and yeah, good to be here with you today.
Now, Shannon, being the true professional he is, as I've just realised, my little Rodecaster Pro wasn't actually recording. The camera was recording, but the audio itself wasn't. So he's been the professional as he is, and he's given me the same answer once again, feeling good, just after training that he's come back from. Now, Shannon, as we touched on before the recording wasn't actually going, we were just talking about the excitement levels that you're feeling in terms of the lead-up. We're 2 weeks out, of course. What are the excitement levels for you now that we're so close?
Yeah, Luke, it's obviously, it's starting to creep in. It's starting to get real. Obviously, 12, 14 weeks out, you're like, oh, I've got heaps of time. Then all of a sudden it's 6 weeks and now we're 2 weeks away. So one more hard week of training. And then we got the fight week, all the stuff that comes with that, obviously media and the weight cut and all that stuff. But yeah, it's starting to get exciting now, knowing it's just around the corner.
And now, of course, the road to this, Shannon, as you went through the route of the Dana White's Contender Series, and I'm not going to make you retell the story because you've told it so many times. I actually just told it myself about 2 minutes ago before, again, the recording fiasco that we just encountered. But Shannon...
I think people like it.
I think the people do like the story. I've heard it a couple of times and I enjoy hearing it because it's such an inspirational story. But for our viewers and our listeners that don't know, Shannon went into his Dana White's Contender Series fight with a bout of appendicitis, essentially a ruptured appendix that he was dealing with.
Correct.
Put it down to potentially the cutting weight, feeling like maybe he's a little bit hungry, could be the jitters leading up to the fight. Like the professional he is, put it to the back of his mind, went into the cage, fought his heart out, didn't get the result that he wanted, of course. Moving forward into the hospital the next day because he got taken in because the pain started to elevate, the symptoms started to worse. I believe you touched on some blood poisoning was also part of the factor, hence maybe where the shaking of the body was sort of coming from. So dealt with that, told he was needing an operation to get that sorted out, was due to fly back to Australia, was told if he took that flight back to Australia, that he could have possibly died, of all things, was given the old the Houdini treatment in terms of that's the route that he could have taken beyond that. Thank goodness that was taken care of, as you've said a few times. And then beyond that, in the face of all of the adversity that you face, you come out the other side successful from the surgery, fresh with a UFC contract from Dana White, who was so impressed with your fight, even after the loss. I mean, as far as poster boys for the triumph in the face of adversity, man, that's got to be you at this point, surely.
Yeah, man, I truly believe that I'm built a little bit different than 99% of the fighters out there, and the resilience I have and the dedication and the power I have to push stuff to the back of my head to get me through and get the task done is I think I'm on another level than a lot of people out there, and I think the UFC has seen that as well. And obviously everything I went through, and not even the appendicitis, just the visa issues, the missed flights, the passports getting lost, and push through all that adversity and come out, still give the UFC the show that they wanted and the fans something to be excited about. And then, obviously go in with appendicitis, get the surgery and wake up from that surgery with the contract in hand was massive. Yeah.
Now, this might not have necessarily gone this route for you because, and as you've told a couple of times, you were prior to this at some point, you were considering maybe not fighting on anymore. You'd thought maybe you'd taken your career so far. Of course, the adversity that we touched on, you felt like maybe you'd sort of done all you can do in the sport. Now, your wife, you're a tremendous family man. It was a conversation that you had with your wife, and she touched on that maybe this is something you should continue doing. I think maybe it would have been a bit more forcefully than that. She probably gave you the bit of the kick in the backside. I don't think you should be hanging up. I think it's time to continue. Now, from coming full circle, from having that conversation with you from the brink of retirement, all the way to being able to have a conversation with her, with your family of, hey, listen, I went into this fight, I had the loss, but I'm coming home with a UFC contract. Like, what was that like in contrast?
Yeah, it was pretty surreal, man. You touched the nail on the head there. Obviously the start of last year, 2022, we still had COVID and everything happening, and were trying to get fights and sort of couldn't get really anything under wraps. And we ended up taking a fight with Eternal, with Sean Etchell for the flyweight title to regain that and get another fight and stay busy. That was the fight that I took when my wife said, no, you got to have one more fight. And like, you've sacrificed a lot, but so's everyone else. So you got to have another one. So I said, all right. And then Cam come back to us with the fight that's obviously very exciting for me, which was Sean Etchell. And we signed that. And literally a week or two later, the world's opening back up and we get the call for the Contender Series contract. And then, yeah, we went down that route. And obviously most of the viewers and everything that we just touched on in the couple minutes prior to this is like how the Contender Series unraveled and wrapped. And now I get to say that with the push forward of my wife telling me to stick at it and keep in there, and obviously a little bit more dramatic than that, but yeah, now I'm here in the UFC. And being a big family man, it's like I was a little bit down on myself with the amount of time I had to spend away from my kids and family with training and work and all that sort of stuff. Now it's come full circle. I don't have to work at the moment, so I'm getting double the time with the kids and double the time with the wife, and I get to focus 100% on training and being a professional fighter.
And now, speaking of training, you touched on previously that you've now moved, you moved part of your training camp down to Freestyle MMA. Freestyle MMA, of course, home to the UFC featherweight champion, #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world, Alexander Volkanovski. And beyond that, also home to eternal featherweight champion, Justin Van Heerden. Now, the reason why I bring that up, previously when I'd actually spoken to Justin, had a conversation with him ahead of his title fight where he won his title at Eternal 72. One of the biggest things that he took away, or that he said to me that he takes away from training with someone like Alex, is he's always said you need to make yourself undeniable. That's part of Alex Volkanovski's mantra, and quite fitting that, you know, being where you sort of been, the adversity that you've had, to coming through and getting a contract after coming off a loss, something that I don't think I've seen personally. I think you said that you're not sure if that's happened before. But I mean, that's about as undeniable as it gets, right? As far as, you know, coming through all that you have. Now that you're training, or you're trained alongside the absolute king of undeniable, I mean, how beneficial has that been at this point in your career, coming into fighting at UFC 284 on the same card as him?
Yeah, it's massive, right? Obviously going down and spending 4 weeks in Wingdang and training with the guys at Freestyle, obviously Alex and Justin, Colby, like all the team. It's really, really good to be around that energy and be around their level of athletes. And obviously Alex, pound for pound #1 in the world. It's I can ask him anything and get an answer, and I can trust in that answer. So that's massive for myself. And then obviously just seeing how they run their camps and knowing that I'm doing things right on my end when I'm not down there, it's very similar, and knowing I'm on that right trajectory to do things properly and perform at my best, and hopefully one day be at the same level as Alex.
And speaking of training partners, one of your training partners, Tim Moore, a man that we actually covered and honoured recently as part of our Eternal Icon series. Tim, another former Eternal Flyweight champion. So they're breeding the flyweights right down here in Australia. So, you know, the guys that you've got sort of training around you, I mean, you know, what a team, and what a stable of resources to lean on, right?
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, everyone that I've got in my little camp up here is high level, and Tim's a former flyweight champion, and we've trained together for years. So sometimes it's about that hard training, and sometimes it's about having those training partners that know when to push you and when to pull back a little bit to get you through the sessions and get the work done and be smart cerebrally as well. So we've got a really good relationship. We've probably worked together for close to 10 years. So we know each other sort of back to front, the weight cuts, the fight weeks, all that sort of stuff. So it's awesome to have him around. And then, obviously the rest of my team is exact same thing, high level boxers, high level kickboxers, grapplers that pushing me when I need to be pushed, and being cerebral when we need that aspect as well.
Now you're still in Queensland, correct? I think we talked about this yesterday.
Yep. Yeah, I'm back up home in Queensland now. Yeah. Yep. So I spent for nearly 5 weeks down in Wingdang, and then I come home for Christmas with the kids and the wife, and then I was going to head back down to Wingdang, but the way things just played out, obviously I've got 2 little kids and vacation care and like stuff like that. Couldn't get back until 2 weeks into mid-Jan. So I was going to spend 3 weeks here anyway. I might as well just spend the last 2.5 weeks extra and finish it all off here. So
So when do you actually make the flight over to Perth?
So I'll make the flight over this Sunday.
And
so
what
just
is
a week out, the normal fight week.
sure? And once you get there, like, what does that week look like for you? Like, have you got a lot of things set up in terms of your meet and greets, your media, that sort of thing? Like, yeah, it must be a little bit of a whirlwind in terms of coming from, the regional scene, stepping up to the big time in the UFC. What does that week look like for you once you get there?
Yeah, obviously have media and meet and greets and stuff like that, and then obviously you still got to get all your training and stuff in between those tasks, and then your nutrition's got to be on point, your water load, get ready for the weight cut, and then all the extra stuff the UFC have on you. At any minute they'll call you and be like, hey, we need you to do this like in the next half an hour, or in 2 hours we need you to be here. So it's pretty much just being ready to go, being, like I said, being resilient and just roll with what comes and what happens and get the job done. As obviously fighting's one part of the job now, and I think there's a few other moving parts that come with this sport. It's obviously media and your requirements and tasks at hand. So yeah, just being flexible and getting it all done and enjoying the process, and then yeah, soaking it all in up after the fight. We get that win and enjoying it massively from there.
Now, speaking of the upcoming win, of course, getting that win at the hands of Clayton Rodriguez, a fighter from Brazil with a 7-2 record. And now, based on your knowledge of Clayton, like, what are you expecting in terms of the matchup stylistically and everything when it comes to fighting against Clayton? What can you tell us of what you know about him and what we're expecting as soon as we see you get in the cage to square off with him?
Yeah, obviously, stylistically, it's a good matchup. The UFC are very smart how they match guys and how they expect the fights to play out. So I think they're thinking me and him are going to get into it pretty quick and get the fireworks going and get the crowd off their feet. And I think where they've positioned us on the card as well sort of speaks volumes to that. Obviously, watched a fair bit of tape on Cleedson. He's sort of a pressure fighter. He likes to be on the front foot. So our job's going to be to take that away and put him on the back foot and take a lot of his attacking opportunities away from him with angles and movement and having him on the back foot.
As you said, like, smart matchup by the UFC in terms of a stylistic matchup. But not only that, but I mean, the placement on the card, right? I mean, they tend to do this. Opening up the prelims after the UFC Fight Pass prelims, you've got Bruce Buffer there, of course. Like, we are live. Like, they know what they're doing in terms of these matchups, and they tend to put these matchups, right in that sort of spot when the cameras start rolling, and it's to get the crowd amped up. Like, they know what they're doing as far as this matchup goes. Am I wrong?
Yeah, 100%, man. They're very smart. The matchmakers are very smart at that as well. And obviously, where they place guys in the card is it's all got a purposeful meaning. Sometimes people just look at it like that's a cool card, but yeah, if you actually look at how guys fight and where they place them on cards, it speaks volume for what they expect from the card and how they expect it to flow and get the crowd energized and all that sort of those aspects. Like, it's a big moving thing, and there's lots of different things they're thinking about. So yeah, being placed, I think, in the position that we are is it's a crowd starter fight for the pay-per-view for sure.
And as we said at the start, Shannon, like, the journey that you've had is incredible. I mean, from top to bottom, through everything that you've been through, in terms of the wins and losses that you've had through your career, as a professional now fighting for the UFC, but all the way back from the front, starting your career as a professional, fighting against guys that are, sometimes already 10 and 15 fights in their career, something we don't really sort of see much these days. I think it's fair to say that you put yourself through the fire quite heavily. You certainly paid your dues and you've more than earned your spot here. And I think it really just paints that picture in terms of that culmination of getting that contract from Dana White, even after coming off the loss from the Dana White's Contender Series, him actually coming into the cage, which is something he never does, and sometimes doesn't even step into the cage, even to put a belt on someone. So to see someone, such from like yourself, coming from our country and having that kind of plaudits from the boss man is just incredible. And I think it's a truly inspirational story from the brink of retirement to where we are now. It's absolutely incredible. I have just one more question before you leave, mate, and thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, no worries.
In terms of where you are now, and we're 2 weeks away from the big fight, from the biggest fight of your career, what are you hoping of for the rest of your career now that we've come full circle? You're at the age of 33 years old now. When you look at going past this, we get the win. What do you see next for the rest of your career?
Yeah, obviously, 2023 this year, I want to be busy. I want to rack 2 or 3 fights off pretty quick and keep that upward trajectory of into the top 15, top 10 sort of aspect, and try to make myself a household name in the UFC in that division. And now not working and having just full time to focus on training and recovery, nutrition, that aspect is it's been massive for me. I feel like a very fresh and new fighter for this fight. Take 40 hours of work out of the equation every week. It's life changing. So yeah, you say 33, but now I've got this like renewed energy of just training and loving fighting and building myself and being better, and obviously getting used to all the media obligations and the stuff that comes with the UFC now. So yeah, from here on in my career, my goal is 100% to push to that title, and this year rack off 3-4 fights if I can. Obviously, we're stacked early in the year, so that sets me up for a good mid-year, back end of the year as well. So yeah, end of the rest of my career is just pushing forward to that top 10, top 5. Obviously, get to that title, and that's where I want to be. I'm not scared to say that. I'm not here to just fight and be a part of the show and be a part of the UFC. I want to actually get to the top and be a world champion one day. So that's my major goal, yeah.
And all of us, the fans, are very much looking forward to seeing how that journey goes for you, Shannon. We're right behind you, of course. Australia, very excited to have another fighter in the UFC. The journey starts again fresh. It all goes down UFC 284, February 12th for those following the Australian dates. Hot off the back, of course, of Eternal 73, which plays out the day before. What a weekend it's going to be in terms of local martial arts as well as international mixed martial arts coming into the country. Shannon, thank you so much for joining me. He is, of course, and always will be the Turkish delight, Mr. Shannon Ross. Shannon, we'll see you on the other side, brother. All the best at 284. We'll talk to you after it.
Perfect. Cheers, my man. Thanks, Luke. And yeah, thanks to Eternal for all the work they've put into me in the years, and can't wait to the big weekend, the Eternal card and then the UFC 284. So super pumped for everyone, and yeah, see you guys there.
Let's get it. Thanks, Shannon.